gentlemen, welcome to the panel. I'm very happy to have you here.
To host you in Warsaw, and just to clarify, Kasjan is a member of board at Bogdanka, Lubelski, Węgiel. Very happy to have you here as well. And I'm pretty happy that this panel is more about experts, because we have 3 experts: climatologists, economists, and mine specialists, I would say, coal specialists. So I hope that we'll take the discussion to a more technical level, and we can talk about some particular issues. So energy transformation, it's a huge topic, and I think we could sit here like for hours and talk about it, and probably won't find the proper solution for all the challenges and problems we have ahead of us in Poland and the Europe and the actually entire world. But I would like to start from the topic of gas. In general, it was supposed to be like transitional fuel. And now, after the circumstances changed, the war started and other stuff, the situation is a bit different. So the first question, and I would like all of you to answer it, is how the war in Ukraine is influencing the energy transformation right now. Maybe we'll start with Kasjan.
Dzień dobry, szanowni państwo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The war is a reality check for various ideologies and ideas. And this is also a reality check for energy and climate policy of the EU. Gas was supposed to be a transitional fuel, and this was promoted both by Russia and by...
Excuse me.
So I'll continue, and we'll share the mic.
Thank you. Sorry for the interrupt.
The German economy had a huge competitive edge over other European economies, but it turns out now that their gas prices were twice, were half the price that Poland's had from Gazprom. So as a consequence, they had an additional benefit, cheap energy. But take chemical industry. Chemical industry needs huge amounts of gas to manufacture their goods. But anyway, Polish companies could compete with, take BAS for a German company. So this shows how much dependent on Russian gas Germany is. And also look at the series of events, because at the end of this year, Germany started the phase out of their nuclear energy. Nord Stream 2 was supposed to be launched, and this would turn Germany into a hub, and Germany would make money on selling gas to Europe. So this would be a double victory for the German economy, because they would have cheap energy and they could resell the gas and with a profit. And Ukraine seems to be a poor country, a backward country, but actually their energy mix was quite interesting, because 1/3 of their energy, their own sources, nuclear, 1/3 imported gas from Russia, and 1/3 energy from coal. Also, they have huge rivers, so they also used hydro plants. But the war broke out, and let's say disruption for supply and demand of resources, of gas, coal, fuel, oil, because Russia exports oil, more oil than gas, actually. This is the first thing it exports. So now we see clearly that European countries were very dependent on Russia. But every member state is different. Every member state has its advantages. There are some countries which, with sea access, they can have offshore wind farms. There are countries with huge rivers and difference in altitudes, waterfalls, which can be harnessed as the energy source. There are also countries with LNG terminals. Poland has a terminal because luckily we've built one recently. But Poland is among a few European countries which have coal reserves. So I represent this industry which is practically extinct in Poland, because in Europe, because only Germany, the Czech Republic and Poland are the three countries that keep producing coal. But take China, take India, they keep producing coal. China last year manufactured 9 million tons a day. Now their goal is to produce 12 a day, and Poland generates 10 a year. So this gives you a picture of the scale. You have the European Union, but you have the whole world. Of course, people speak about low emissions, etc. But the problem is that we need a source of energy to replace coal in Poland, because the whole country, the whole infrastructure in Poland was designed during the communist time. The ports, the railway services, also some cities, everything was built only with coal production in mind. So the only option for Poland to become independent is nuclear energy. And this is actually also the only alternative for Europe. Because any other source, any other resource makes you dependent on someone. Take hydrogen. Green hydrogen sounds fancy, but you need Russian gas. You need gas to produce hydrogen. If you use coal, it's not going to be green anymore. We have renewable resources, but we are well aware of the fact that we need rare earths to do that, and this is also interfering with the environment. And where are the metals? Well, China, Africa. So Africa is also indirectly controlled by Chinese companies. Some people speak about importing hydrogen from North Africa, but that would also mean being dependent. So you're speaking about fuel reserves here. So the only option that keeps you independent is diversifying and building nuclear power plants and using coal in the transitional period.
Really great to be in Warsaw, so thanks to the organizers in the beginning. But no, energy transition, it cannot only be green, it also has to be sustainable. And I'm working on my PhD, how to implement sustainable economic models. And a lot of people get wrong that green is sustainable. Green is only one part of the sustainability, the whole sustainable development. It has to be for the people. It must ensure prosperity for countries, for companies, for everybody. But foremost, you need partnership between all of the players, and you need peace. And if we're talking about European green policy, it's unethical, because we're talking that the climate change will kill us in 2050, 2040 or something. Russia is doing it now. No, we must transit not only on green transition, but it has to be away from the Russian gas, on any resource coming out from the Russia. So, and it's, we need clean and affordable energy, but we always have to keep in mind that you need baseload energy. The wind is good, solar is good, but the new mix, the new energy mix, it will be based on a lot of resources. And for now, I think the Poland can use their coal for 10 or more years, and I think this industry will not kill more people than Russia is doing now. So it's, if we're talking about transition, you need some sort of baseload, especially if you need heating for the industries or for houses. You need gas, coal, or nuclear. But I think till we can find good technologies in place in Europe for nuclear energy, the Poland should actually continue on using their plants, but and build maybe greener solutions. I know there are filters, there are a lot of new technologies which can be implemented that the effect on climate, it's reduced. So, but in the core concept of the whole European policy, it's quite strange that we are one of the biggest economies, we're prosperous, we have the technology and knowledge, but we try to transition not to be self-sustainable, but to rely on foreign resources. So European Union has, Russia is a bad partner, but in any other way, we must be self-sufficient in energy. We cannot rely on foreign resources. Especially we can see it's, yesterday I heard that in Spain the fracking it's not allowed, but still they can use gas from America who are gained by fracking technology. So it's quite devastating for economy that you have the mindset that you are not allowed to produce, but you can still consume and pay other countries, basically the whole benefit. So in the whole transition, we have to move away. The Green Deal, it's interesting, but we must go away from Russian sources and other foreign resources. We have to, the European energy grid, it's in place, it's quite elastic, so the countries can produce not only energy for themselves, but also for the partners. I come from the Baltics. Our energy sector, it's unified between all our countries. Everybody knows what they're doing. We have huge hydro dams, so they regulate everything, because on springtime we have huge amounts of electricity coming from our hydro plants. One more solution which Europe should focus on, that actually the best thing is that the best solution is that you don't use energy. Okay, you need energy, but a lot of Latvian companies are building their solar plants, biogas facilities, and actually becoming self-sustainable, but of course it's not for all industries, but for some industries it can work. And also it's the same for cities. One city just which is quite, the agricultural field, there's a lot of waste. So they built a new biogas facility, and they're self-sustainable. They don't need other resources. They can provide just from the farming sector. So it's all, and the same people can work on sustainable housing, sustainable districts, sustainable cities. So the new market, the new energy mix scenario, the wind is there, everything is there, but we need to rely on some good baseload energy production types. One is gas, but if it comes from Russia, it's not an option. At this moment, if Poland has coal, let's make those facilities better. Let's invest in that the effect on climate change, it's smaller. But and when we are building also the nuclear facilities in Baltics, but for now, the small modules. But I think the timeline it's at least 10 years. I think that the modules in the best case scenario will be only in place in year 31. So it's like 9 years from now. So we need to transition away from Russian gas on a greener way. But the main part, it's the Russia is killing people in Ukraine now. To transit away on some just green technologies at this moment, it's not necessary. I think the Poland can really use their coal facilities, and they will kill less people than Russia is doing per day, I think, in the next 10 or 20 years. So.
Okay, my specialization is climatology, so I'm sure that I fit into this panel well. But I don't want to run away from the topic. I would just follow your thought that unlike Russians, the climate change will not kill us, at least for several tens of years.
To hear.
But I'd like to stress two things that were not being talked about here too much, or if so, only marginally. First is science, the role of science, and the other is the thing that is at the very beginning of our being here at this conference of all these green deals. It's the climate itself. So my view is that the playground is much larger than what we could hear these 2 days now. All the talks or all the concerns are about just one part of the, let's say, business. It's about the reduction of carbon production. This is just one of several kinds of possible measures against climate change. And for some reason that I don't understand, almost everybody, particularly those the policymakers, focus on this issue. Perhaps because it's the easiest one to cope with. It's easy to ban something. It's easy to pose regulations on something. It's much easier than to invent something. First of all, I'd like to stress that there is an opportunity not only to cope with the climate change itself, but with the consequences of the climate change. So I mean, well, I must take a look at my notes. It's a matter of adaptation. Yeah, adaptation measures are very important, and many bad consequences of the climate change can be rectified. For example, I don't know, air conditioning in summer, and so on and so on. Irrigation if drought is the threat, and so on. Of course, it can't help in all cases. If you live in a small island just surrounding by sea, then it's very difficult to adapt to rising levels of the sea. Then we have the mitigation approaches. Mitigation meaning, of course, coping with the climate change itself, reducing the climate change itself. So one of the possible approaches to mitigation is the reduction of carbon production. This is what we are talking about. There are other two major options. One is carbon capture and storage. either carbon capture, either somewhere from the air, or just at the source where it is produced. And storage where to the old mines, to seafloor, and so on. And the third possibility is what is called geoengineering. It's, let's say, the manipulation with our environment with the aim to reduce the solar radiation that is absorbed by the Earth, by its surface. It can be done several ways, for example, by enhancing the reflectability, the albedo of the surface of the atmosphere in any of its parts, or reducing the amount of solar radiation coming to the Earth from space. For example, by some measures in space, like putting big mirrors or big lenses into the space. It sounds a bit ridiculous or almost impossible to do. But if we think a bit more deeply, then we may come to the conclusion that such measures from the area of science fiction are not more difficult than the measures that we are talking here about, because reduction of carbon production, stopping coal mines, and so on, and electromobility, we don't have solutions to all these problems yet in our hands, and moreover, we don't know, and I'm not sure that science is much involved in it. We don't know the impact of these decisions, the consequences on socio-economic consequences, geopolitical consequences of all these measures that are already being taken. So my point is that while these measures that are in their infancy, I mean the carbon capture and storage and the geoengineering, that we know that they have some weak points, negative consequences. The analogous negative consequences are linked to the measures that European Union and other decisive bodies are already taking. So maybe I didn't answer any of your questions, but this is what I thought is important to be said here.
Yes, it's essential what you said.
Tak, to bardzo ważne, zwłaszcza to, co pan powiedział na początku. To wczoraj na konferencji wpadło w trakcie otwarcia, także pan Poręba dzisiaj o tym mówił. Otóż niezwykle ważne jest to, że my, konserwatyści, powinniśmy właśnie zbudować naszą narrację wokół ekologii i ochrony środowiska, ale powinniśmy się opierać na danych i badaniach, bo inaczej staniemy się właśnie tym, czym jest druga strona, która teraz krzyczy bardzo głośno i się spotyka i gada co miesiąc, ale nic nie robi. Potrzebujemy badań i danych. Mam pytanie w takim razie. Co to znaczy dla pana, żeby być neutralnym klimatycznie, neutralność klimatyczna, bo to jest teraz bardzo modny termin w firmach, w korporacjach, a pan jest ekspertem od klimatu, więc muszę pana o to zapytać. To jest świetne pytanie.
I have no idea what it should mean to be climate neutral. Yeah, but I'm expert in climate, not climate neutrality. I don't know if it's impossible to be climate neutral because I'm breathing oxygen and just breathing out CO2. So how can I be climate neutral? I'm producing CO2. On the other hand, I consume some CO2 in, I don't know, in my food. It goes through my body, so I don't know.
That's very important. Ladies and gentlemen, next conference will start with the panel about what does it mean to be climate neutral. I think everybody will need to know this. Anyway, thank you for remarks. Something is wrong with this microphone. And I would like to ask you another question to you. I hope you'll take this, Elmars, about the coming back to energy transformation. How do you think, and what's your opinion about this from the strictly economic financing point of view? What energy transformation can do to the economy of a country, and how it should be taken from the taxation point of view, for example, because that's a huge problem. European Union is putting like new taxes and new payments with the carbon dioxide and so on. So what's your opinion on that?
So thanks, interesting question. No, the main part is if you will fight in the policies against something, you will lose. You have to fight for something. You cannot just restrict companies, industries. You have to help them. You have to help them transform. If you need transition, then help them in the transition. Because no, energy supply will grow in future. No, if we want better living standards, if we want bigger salaries, more modern companies, no, the energy consumption will increase. So, no, the transformation is always happening. No, the new new facilities are built every year. The main thing which Europe should help, it's because Europe is a big market. Now, we need good investments in grid. If the grid is elastic, then you can really start thinking about maybe Denmark is producing 50% of their electricity from wind, but it's not stable. But it's still, I think it's achievable. A lot of countries can build. Latvia, we have a huge shoreline. We're planning to build big wind farms. But for most part, actually we produce enough energy for ourselves, but our neighbors are not in the same position. They're producing less than they're consuming. So it's always, everybody can help each other. I think it's the same situation with Poland. I know that there was huge spikes, I think, a couple of years ago, and then Sweden just turned off a couple of reserve facilities just to ensure that there's enough electricity in the grids. Because sometimes, a lot of the companies, go on regular maintenance works. We have seen spikes in electricity. It reached 1,000 euros per megawatt because the wind wasn't blowing, and so a lot of companies were just on regular maintenance. So we need good communication, good grid, and let's just build new. Let's not close down our existing plants. Let's build new ones. Okay, let's build wind. Let's build solar. And let's build nuclear. When you build the new ones, then you can close the old ones. But let's not provide on foreign resources in this transition. Let's focus on building new and better. That's how you can help. Because every new company which will be built or a power plant, the innovations are there. The technology is developing. I think the nuclear technologies, it hasn't reached its peak. It can, I think, even be much better in the future. The same, I think, it's for coal and wind and everything else. So let's build more, and let's not rely on foreign powers, and especially not Russia, for our energy.
Yes, that's one of the most important issues we are talking about during this conference. Thank you for this remark. And Kasjan, I have a question for you, as you're the obviously bad guy here, because you work with coal. And I don't know if you hear, but a few days ago, Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, gave the statement that Germany will stop the process of turning off the mine coal for a while, but even though they still won't turn on any nuclear plants. And can you defend this statement, and can you explain to us why coal is important and why maybe it's not so bad for the environment?
Jeszcze pozwolę odnieść się do przedmówców.
If I can just make a statement to my colleagues' statements. The first one is on climate neutrality. Let's say, what are we making hydrogen from? H2O. You need a lot of electrical energy to create oxygen, and CO2, you have C and O2. If we were to chemically split it inexpensively, then oxygen can be released to the atmosphere, and C could be combusted once again to use for energy purposes. In which direction this technology will go, we don't really know. The CCS, carbon capture and storage, czyli sekwestracja, już istnieje. Można
zeroemisyjnym, ale niskoemisyjnym paliwem, no tak jak gaz. No, gaz też nie jest zeroemisyjnym paliwem.
Ale once again, I'll come back to the question of finance, because this is relevant from the perspective of doing business. The most important thing in EU policy is that somebody has set a goal. We have not tied into this. We decarbonized earlier, and the investment processes in mining or in the construction of large power plants are 10 years, 15 years ahead. This cannot be achieved without an unstable legislative environment. Maybe this was planned in Brussels, but Russia's plan, of course, undermined that, and this was the best way to just fill in the gap, because gas is a very flexible, and you just need to press a button, and basically if you are injecting gas or not. You can't do that in coal-fired plants. So in general we have taxing in Europe of coal. First, we have certificates for the emission of CO2 and the fees for those certifications released by various funds and financial institutions. So the price of those certificates was not reflected in any realistic value. The second thing was the EU directive on the methane fee. So it's going to be in another link in the chain, and another aspect is financing investments. 2 years ago, we were planning to build a tunnel that was supposed to extend our mine. We prepared a business plan for that. Unfortunately, it started to bring effects after the 49. So by 49, we're supposed to phase out all of mining. Nobody's going to establish financing for that when it's much more expensive. The EU policy went into all banks of investment funds, and there is a blocking, and investments are not provided for coal investments. Today we see that this is not the question of coal or gas. Simply as Europe, we have coal, and this gives us in countries such as those countries that they are green and they care about their PR and so on and so forth. But when it's not windy and not sunny, they import electrical energy from us, which is from that horrible coal. So unconventional sources have to be secured in conventional. So either in the atom, in coal, or gas. The more capacity is installed in unconventional, the greater security in those aspects, and then the source of non-conventional by greater installed capacities. Today, and I'm working in an atypical company for mining because it's in the it's eastern Poland near the border with Ukraine, and it's mainly higher Silesia is considered the mining areas, but there's a lot of urbanization, and in our region, Lubelszczyzna, the deposits are really huge. We're extracting under forests, under meadows, and the fact that we are the bad guy, or apropos of the bad guy, some of the lakes that later there are Natura 2000 areas are a result of the works that are done deep underground, where the land basically slumps, and then the lakes create and come in the birds and the wildlife. Because for many years coal was supposed to be phased out, it's not possible to increase the level of extraction. For example, a bottleneck for us are the mining channels. The mining channels have its capacity. It can't bring up more than the skip can bring out during 24-hour period, during months, during weeks. So to do greater extraction, you need to have subsequent channels, which you need more investments for. But another question is, if we decide to increase these capacities, the Germans are doing it, the Italians are introducing in a state of maintenance their coal plants. So we don't know if it's going to change and the approach towards coal. But once I already said, I'm saying again that we need foreseeability and stability. So we say, okay, tell us, we'll phase out in 30 years. But the situation is so dynamic, and also the war in the Ukraine has dynamicized everything, so we have to see what the production capacities for extraction are. Where are we going to burn it and combust it? Because we need fuels and we need sources of energy. So, summarizing, the best solution would be that Poland, despite everything, would have new coal units, 1,500 megawatts, on our methodology and with CCS, low emissions, carbon capture and storage, and we don't have from where to generate energy. Poland has the coal capacities, and as I said, this could be a transition fuel, a transitory fuel.
We have the technology, innovative, I believe, that you can build a new energy plant and power with coal, and it will be cleaner, right?
Yes, of course, these technologies could be developed even more. The issue is, and we have to combine this, we have to see how we, as the European Union, what kind of fuels we have, what kind of raw materials and resources. And I have to boast, because not all coal is bad. Even a strategic list is coke coal, which basically is used for steel, and decarbonization was supposed to cover that also. So sometimes you can see that we are within the ideology, unsupported by facts, and block sometimes something for the economy, because in reality the plan of transition so quickly, not having our own resources as Europe and raw materials, that means that our economy will not be competitive compared to other world players on other continents.
Thank you. Elmars, Radan, do you want to add
Anything to that?
I'd like to add just a few words to what you had said in the very beginning, the role of science. Yeah, I felt CO2 and separation, chemical separation, and so on. So my remark will be just that we can, to some extent, compare our situation regarding the climate change to our situation that we faced with the relation to COVID pandemic. There is a perfect solution to cope with the COVID pandemic: to close all the people for 3 weeks somewhere and not allow anyone to move. Then, of course, many people will die of hunger, of anything, of lack of many things, but the COVID will be eradicated. But the next step is, or the alternative is, to massively invest into the science, into the development, which has happened, and the vaccine against COVID has been developed within few months and was ready to use. And now our situation with climate change. Everyone is ready to make bans, and I can repeat what I already said. Bans, regulations, stopping burning coals, stopping flying, stopping eating meat. This is what surprises me, why people are so heavily against meat, but not against rice. Rice production is also a great producer of methane. Yeah, but it was just a sidestep. In parallel, in analogy to COVID, I really believe that if we invested massively into science, into these such things as you mentioned, into even the rather strange methods of geoengineering that I mentioned, then we could find a good solution that would not pose limits to our own development, on our well-being. Well-being is not a sin, it's just what our humanity, or what is important for our humanity. So this may be a good solution to proceed, I think. And I forgot to say one important thing in favor of the geoengineering. Unlike all the other measures, its effect would be immediate. We put the big mirror into the space, let's say, and it will work from that very moment. All these measures that are based on carbon reduction and carbon capture, storage, sequestration have very long delay in the effect on climate, because carbon dioxide and most of other greenhouse gases have a very long lifetime in the atmosphere. What we put into the atmosphere now, half of that will stay in the atmosphere after 100 years.
I są potrzebne do fotosyntezy na przykład.
They are needed for photosynthesis. Yes?
Yes, so I wanted to stress the role of science again.
Yeah, and I want to add that there was the questions about how the conservatives should be like. What's the green conservatism? We cannot focus on green. We must focus on sustainability, especially in the energy sector. We have different regions, different technologies. What's good? No, we have solar panels, but in winter time, they're useless. It's zero production of energy. It's not the same case in Italy. But in winter time, we need heat. And no, for housing and everything else. No, it's different story. In big Nordic countries, we need heat for our home if we want to actually survive. No, the winters are not so cold anymore, so it's getting less of a problem. But still, no, still we need. We cut off the Russian gas, and actually at this moment, no, we're left on our own. Of course, we're cooperating with our Baltic partners. The U.S. Energy sector has told like the ships will come in February, but for most part we don't know what we're going to do in winter time. So, but we're still trying to find solutions. So you cannot regulate on the whole European scale. No, every country has to make their own decision. But if it's a good grid, elastic grid, the countries will find a way, and the business will find a way eventually. And of course, the nuclear is the future. It's the most sustainable energy form. It provides good benefits for the human capital, smart scientists, high productivity rates. It's the one of the lowest CO2 emissions. Per a lot of resources, and it's quite small. You won't see the wind turbines on like every time when you go on the seaside. It could be getting quite tricky, and of course, if the climate change is happening, the extreme weather events are happening, nuclear facilities are more secure than wind farms. If big storms are coming in, we can see tornadoes happening in Europe, which wasn't before the problem, but now it is a problem. So we really need to focus on sustainability issues. It has to be secured energy, it has to be clean energy, but it has to be affordable energy. So sustainability, I think, is the main option how we can fight against the Greens and the radicals who don't think about how you produce electricity, how your family will be warm in the winter time, and how your companies can be productive. So no, sustainability, it could be the answer.
Okay, yes, thank you. It's of course very smart what you're saying. We are all nodding. But you said one thing, we should find a solution. So I propose, let's. Kasjan, what's for you, how the energetic mix should... Oh, hello. Energetic mix look like in Poland? And then we'll go to Elmars and Radan.
Po pierwsze powinien być...
First of all, it should be diversified maximally. We should aspire as a target to have as many generating sources from the atom. But when we're going to have the atom, we don't know. It's a question, it's a time, 10, 15 years. In the technological and business processes, this is a long period of time. Also, that's the target. Temporarily or transitionally, we should take advantage of what we have at hand, coal. There should be a plan of extending the lifespan of 200 plus, which should be in the updated energy policy of the state. Another thing we could consider, of course, gas sources, which we have. We also have import thanks to the LNG port in Cholewińska. Those generating capacities should be from gas and definitely not from the Russian direction, as we know. That will not give us anything. And coal, as I said, I believe We could consider the construction of new mines, but not in Silesia, but in the Lubelszczyzna region. We could generate a lot of volumes of coal to the Ukraine last year, so it can be done inexpensively. We have the longest section of the wall. We are one of the most automated and digitized coal mines, despite the fact that this is a conservative business. We do have innovations.
But the problem lies in financing and unpredictability. We could, as of today, make a governmental investment or pass a law, but the problem is the EU and its approach to the regulations. Well, the 2040 deadline and the phase of coal, is it negotiable? Is it extendable? But if they tell us in 2045 that, oh, okay, you're going to get a 10-year extension, nothing will change because we have until then we will have phased out some capacities. So we need to know now what it's going to look like in 2040. Do you know what Putin's master's degree thesis was about? It was about the impact of gas pipelines and the dependency of Europe on Russian gas and how this can be influenced to restore Russian power globally. So Europe is a very rich continent, rich in resources, but we shouldn't be cornered by Russia.
I korzystanie z tego, co mamy.
So we should diversify and use the resources we have at our disposal. And this will be good for Poland, but also for our neighboring countries. Because we can share energy if each country has a different source of energy. Take Lithuania. If Lithuania has many offshore wind farms and there's no wind, we can export coal-powered coal energy to you. If we don't want to burn coal, we should do it the other way. Import from Lithuania the next month. So these are the most valuable solutions
for the energy transformation.
So no, the energy mix will be it will be a huge diversity of resources, starting from wind, solar, anything. But you also you have a huge farming sector. The biogas options are tremendous, I think, especially for some local solutions. And of course, the solar panels hopefully this summer will be quite warm. But if you want to produce the coolers or anything, the solar panels are quite efficient for cities, private houses, and everything else. So you just know in the new energy sector, you have to be resilient on. And it has to be diversified for multiple resources. And there are the new technologies, we actually don't know what the technologies will bring in 5 years or in 10 years. Maybe there will be new solutions and some new things in place. So we can really rely that in future we have to invest money in clean energy solutions, and the future of the technology, I think, will find a way, and eventually the business will take these ideas and put in economic perspective. So,
thank you, Radan.
It came to my mind now that there is an energy source that is or has been talked about a long time ago. For I don't know, 50 or 60 years, it's told that it's 20 years before it can come to operation, it's nuclear fusion. So maybe if we invested money into this particular, into research of this particular energy source, it could be a future solution. Maybe it would be a blind way, yeah, that leads nowhere. Nobody knows, but I really think that our thinking must be a bit broader, yeah? Not limiting ourselves to what is available now. Another remark, we are talking about green energy sources, wind energy, solar energy, but if you look at the large power plants, wind farms, large solar energy fields, they are even as big and awful scarce in our countryside as the brown coal mines did. And also the idea of having a big solar power plant somewhere on a desert, whether it's Atacama or Sahara, it's, in my point of view, horrible from an environmental point of view because, well, desert, it's not only sand and stone, it's also ecosystem. So we want to save some ecosystems and sacrifice others? Who allows us to do that? Yeah? So maybe that's all for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this interesting remarks. So let me sum up my question about how the energy mix, perfect energy mix should look like. First of all, diversity of resources. That's the most important thing. And another thing is that we should have a proper legislation and proper plan right now, because in a hard industry we just cannot plan investments from one year to another. It just needs years, especially in mining, which is like in the middle of everything. But on the other side, as Elmars said, we should have hope because technology is developing all the time, and maybe we'll finally have some wonderful solution that will help us. And of course, we should be nature friendly and live the environment and care about the planet. That's very important. So I think that's a wrap. If you have any comments, or are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I have one question. No, I was wondering. There is we have to make a didactic way of approach to in this cultural fight that we have, cultural war, if you want. And one of the things is to explain that there are some steps in the so-called ecological way which we can't assume because of not only common sense, but because of simply existential situations. We can't make people suffer for some steps which are not relevant enough for making them suffer. I hope I explain myself a little bit with that. It goes in the sense that we are speaking about 10 million tons of annual in a year of consumption in Poland, and we are speaking that now we have in China more or less 12 millions a day. Well, that's a good example. That's a good example to explain how irrelevant the enormous sacrifice, human sacrifice. The result of this human sacrifice, the relevance of this whole deal, no? It is a lose deal, no? for the people, and how can an authority really seriously expect from someone to ask these people to make this sacrifice for such an irrelevant effect. This should be one of these elements. They are huge. There are lots of amounts of them, but this is spectacular clear. They say, if you compare and you say, well, we would have an economical really a disaster with this 10 million. This 10 millions are 20 hours in the life of the consumption of China, and they will go on, and they will go consuming more in this sense. No, so this could give a good picture of this abuse from the side of the European Union, from this ideological abuse that we are suffering in the whole Green Deal and in all the elements of the Green Deal. If you see them, you know, farm to fork, Fit for 55, and so on and so on. This element of this abuse, this profound abuse of asking a sacrifice for some irrelevant success, should be pointed out continuously, I think.
Ja się jeszcze odniosę.
Okay, so adding a point to what you said, 10 million tons is not the Polish consumption. This is the production of my company, because Poland consumes more. But I will give you one more figure, 7%. This is the share of the EU in the production of CO2 globally. We want to get rid of the 7% to save the world, but this will lead to energy poverty, and this will strip us of competitiveness. We will become energy pariahs of the world as a consequence.
Just a short note. You mentioned the idea that you should suffer, or we are expected to suffer now to achieve something nice, beautiful in the future. Yeah? So this is exactly, I think, what, for example, the communists told us. Yeah? So there is. So this is one of the supporting claims for, I think, the overall accepted idea that we have something to do with something like ideology, yeah, the green ideology, because this is I think one of the basic stones of that ideology.
I want to add on this that one thing, it's in Latvia, we understand that we're in the middle of a wartime economy. We're working on political consensus that we know if in one way or another the government will be formed from different parties. We have consensus on energy, security, and what's the core mentality for the next years, because you cannot debate in wartime. But they still try to push the green agenda. We need energy, for everyday activities, even for these lights. So it's crazy that in wartime, even in wartime, the Europe cannot change. The lefts cannot change even in wartime. That's quite, it's devastating. But hopefully in the future, some consensus can be made, especially for purely logical industries as the energy industry. It's just logical. It's not a policy. It's just who produces electricity, who consumes electricity, at what time of day, and that's it. So hopefully there will be consensus.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for this interesting question. Thank you for the discussion. And what can I say? Let's get back to work and let's find out what the perfect energy mix for energy transition should look like. Thank you.